Welcome back. Welcome back to the Love on Top podcast, episode 2. For those of you tuning in for the first time, my name is Ian. This is my beautiful wife, Shaniqua.
Hello, hello.
My co-host will say. So last episode, we talked a little bit about the start of our relationship, being high school sweethearts, how we kind of came together, and just how chaotic it was, what that meant for our relationship, how it kind of shaped us.
Mm-hmm.
And just a little bit of the background of our relationship, but we didn't really go into too much details. So this episode, we figured we would kind of go into a little bit more detail, just kind of how navigating early relationship went for us and just kind of what we learned from it. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We did mention that it was a little bit chaotic. I think I said that already, but just kind of a breakup to makeup situation. We did a lot of breaking up, as most young people do. So that was like really intense, I would say.
Yeah.
Like I said, I kind of chased you a lot and wouldn't really let you go, not in a toxic way. I have to, have that disclaimer. It wasn't really the toxic, wouldn't let you go. I just really wanted you bad.
Yeah. Yeah, same. We broke up a lot and got back together a lot. And it was just the normal high school, teenage stuff.
Yeah.
The stupid, immature stuff.
I think early on, all the breaking up was okay. But as we kind of rolled into adulthood and we started thinking about getting engaged, and we kind of had that conversation that we was like, we're not really going to, tolerate the breaking up makeup thing anymore. Like we have to be solid and really solidify.
We had like a conversation like, all right, if we're going to do this, we're going to be together. No more of that breaking up every week and getting back together. Cause it was just.
Because that was the next
exhausting.
step in our relationship.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit further down the road. But by that time we had like lived together already too.
Oh, and okay. Did we? Yeah,
we lived together, and I was like leaving, and I was like packing my bags, going back to my mom's house. Because technically, like, your mom had moved already.
Yeah.
So I was really like packing up and headed back to my mom's house. And it was like, this is old. We were like 25 by the time. But kind of,
we got our own apartment
early. Like,
we were 19.
19.
Well, it was like my apartment, and you moved in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of we jumped ahead a little bit. So yeah, it was your apartment. So what kind of happened was us being so young. Obviously, we were in high school, and I remember there was a time where like we were spending every day together, really, obviously.
Every day.
We would sleep over other people's house with each other, but never at each other's house. And
well, that wasn't my mom wasn't letting that happen. So
right. And there's a funny story behind that too. But so one time you slept over my house. I remember we had just moved into a new place, and I needed help like setting up my room. Mm-hmm. So I had invited you over. My mom was cool with you staying over. She actually suggested it, strangely enough. Mm-hmm. And you stayed over, but you never left.
Yeah.
So
I slept over one night, and we never slept apart.
Yeah. So for the past 18 years almost, we've been together almost every night, unless like one of us was on a trip or something like that.
Yeah.
Or in between, like maybe the minor breakups where I would stay at my mom's for a day or two.
Yeah. And that was foreign. Like, I'm like, your mom? You're like, yeah, my mom suggested it.
I was shocked too, like when it happened, but
because my mom wasn't letting that go down. So
yeah.
And that was the other side of it. Obviously, I had to like lie to my mom and tell her that I was sleeping at my friend's house.
Right.
I don't like. I feel like she had to
have known. Yeah.
She had to have.
Because I would pick you up out front
after a while.
Yeah, I would pick you up out front.
But it was always like, oh, you're picking me up to take me over to my friend's house to sleep over.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
That was kind of how it started, yeah. And to my mother-in-law, I'm sorry, but she was sleeping at my house the whole time.
Sorry,
so
Mama.
She lied to you a little bit. White lies, because it's just a white lie.
She knew.
Yeah, you knew deep down inside. But yeah, I would pick you up in front of the house. So that was a little bit different. But yeah, so you never left.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, your mom moved out of town.
Yep, she moved 2 hours away.
You got a little apartment.
So that's when, it was like, I wasn't going with her, obviously. Yeah. So that's when I got my first apartment. and you ended up moving in. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like an unspoken thing because I thought it was like both of our apartment, but
And it
then you
wasn't.
said that it was your apartment, which I understand now
Yeah.
because I technically had like somewhere to fall back on if that
Mhm.
didn't work out. You really didn't. So by naming that like both of our apartment
Yeah.
kind of gave me a little bit of that right away to say, hey, I'm not leaving.
And I remember we got into a fight about that
Yeah, we did.
because you were upset that I was claiming it to be like my place and like
Yeah,
you wasn't going on the lease and none of that.
right.
Um, and I was just kind of explaining to you like I need a plan. Like if this does not
Yeah,
work out, like you have your mom's house that you can go back to.
yeah.
I don't. So
And that's where I think the struggle was because I thought it was like a fail safe plan, like a plan B. And at the time,
yeah.
I didn't really do plan B. So I was like, if you're sure about us and you think this is going to work out, then why would
Right.
you need like another plan?
And I've
And
always been the type to always have a backup plan. Like I'm
yeah,
always like, well, I need to have all these different plans. Like I need to
yeah,
make sure that I'm good because that's
yeah,
just always that's how I was brought up. You know what I mean?
yeah. And looking back at that now, like I
It was smart,
understand
right?
that it's smart. I commend it. And I would want our girls to have their own place to be and not have to worry about like depending on no man to pay the bills.
Right.
But in the moment, that was a struggle for me
No, it
because
was. Yeah.
you told me one time, like, I want you, I don't need you.
Yep.
And
I
that like
remember
really
that.
took me back and kind of hurt my ego, I'll say, because
Mhm.
I was like, what do you mean you don't like need me? Because as a man, you always want to be
Mhm.
feel like you're needed.
Yeah.
I wanted you to rely on me. And, slowly but surely I understood that you were an independent Miss Independent, that Neo song, like you were really embodied that and you were independent and you were strong willed and you were going to get it done with or without me.
Yeah.
So I kind of just had to be like cool with either cool or not cool with someone being so
Yeah.
independent. And
Yeah.
I remember I didn't understand it at first because I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be your man and you don't need me. You don't depend on me. But
Yeah.
now I understand.
Right. And yeah. And not that you took it out of context, but I think you were just so focused on you not being needed that
Yeah,
it
100%.
just took you back. And it's like, I'm not saying that
Yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah, I was fixated on that part, like, oh, you don't need me. And I think it was just it was an immature thing, but I understand now because I would want like if our girls are single and they don't go the path that we did where, they're together, I would want them to own their own house and like live on their own
Mhm.
and pay their own bills. And then when they get a partner, then they can kind of merge their lives.
Yeah.
Where I feel like our situation is a little strange is because like I've never lived on my own. And I kind of have this weird feeling of being on my own. Like if you guys leave the house and I have to stay here by myself, I don't really know what to do. So I kind of just stay up late. Like
Mhm.
I hadn't spent a lot of time where I think the first time that I got like my own room, you moved in.
Yeah.
So I still have not like had my own room technically in my own space.
Yeah.
Which is weird, you know what I mean? Like, because people normally have like their own room, their own space. Where I feel like you had that, so you had that little bit of that independence. So like, if this don't work out, God forbid, but this marriage is forever. But I'm just saying, if this don't work out, I'll be lost because
Mm.
like I
Oh,
never
you're
lived
talking about right
alone.
now. If
Yeah,
this
like,
don't work
if
out.
this doesn't work
Oh.
out, I would be like,
That ship
I
has sailed.
nowhere to go. Yeah, no, and this is forever. Obviously, this is forever. But no, I just think about that. I'm like, man, I never really like lived on my own, which is crazy. But
Mhm.
yeah, but so even before that, like even before getting the apartment, you stayed with me and my mom essentially for like what, your whole senior year,
Mhm.
then some after that. And then we went to college together.
Yeah.
So that's how like
And
deep this relationship goes. It's like
that was a whole F up.
yeah, we traveled what, an hour and a half away to
Yeah,
college
we were only
together.
there for a semester.
You had a dorm room. I had an apartment because I didn't get a dorm room in time.
Mhm.
We were there for a semester. We only spent time with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly where we went wrong in our relationship. I will say is that we didn't make time for like a lot of other people. So had we went to college and we had like split our time and made friends,
Yeah.
I feel like we would have had a longer stay there, but it was just us. And then we came home every weekend
We did.
too.
Yeah.
So like didn't really care about making friends because we're like, oh, we got each other. And then the friends that we did have were back home. So we didn't
Yeah.
really need other people.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what I was saying last episode about just how intense and how serious we were and
Yeah.
how like I wouldn't recommend that to our girls. Like I kind of feel like, you know, I don't know. I kind of feel like we both kind of missed out on that like college life, that
Yeah, we did.
college experience. But at the same time, I don't know if we would be where we are today if we did.
Yeah. So I would
So
say
I
that
don't know.
that's not my personality though. Cause even now, you go out, hang out with your friends here. I stay in the house and I do minimal things. So even in that instance, if you had friends, I would have still been in the house. So I kind of dragged you down.
Back then?
Yeah, back then, like, well, I was more
No.
social. I just became not social
I was
now.
gonna say you were always.
But I had my friends like locked in though. Like the people
Mhm.
I was with was the people I was with. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't like a lot of new
same,
people coming into my circle. So
same.
yeah, I wasn't. I think that was. So maybe I'm wrong then.
Well,
We
that was the
wouldn't
same with
have.
me. I didn't have new friends.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, maybe I was wrong. Like, we probably wouldn't have met new people either way because
Yeah,
we didn't meet new people. We're not new friend people. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, so we went to college together. That was a
just a semester, an
one
hour and a
semester.
half away from home.
Came home every
Came home
single
every
weekend.
weekend, and then next semester we went back home
Went back
and
home.
transferred to the school out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we moved in together, or you basically moved into my house or my mom's house
Uh-huh.
at the time. We stayed together. Your mom going back to her moving out of town. So you started the process of getting your own apartment.
Mhm.
So we moved into that apartment, which was a struggle because of obviously what we talked about, like it being your apartment. So it kind of put a damper on like my experience with it because I'm like, oh, this ain't even mine. You know what I mean? I'm just going to pay bills here and live here, which is cool, but it wasn't really mine. So I couldn't really be like, oh, this is my space. But with that, I do feel like it was like it was difficult to like merge our lives in that apartment together because we were kind of moving everything from your room of your at your old house
Mhm.
to everything in my room at my old house to this one small space, and then things that we didn't have to do when staying with our parents we now had to do here. So I think that
Like
was
what?
like weird, like cleaning and
Oh,
cooking and maintaining a house and bills. And
yeah.
I think that was like me coming into your space was a lot different than you coming into mine because I had never stayed at your house. So
Yeah.
you were just like, whatever was in my room, you were accustomed to that. But me coming into your space, now I have to like do things differently than you were like you accepted before. You know what I mean? Like I could
Yeah.
take a shirt off, leave it on the bed for 2 days. And you're like, this is like my room. So you couldn't really say anything. But now
Yeah.
this is our house
Mhm.
together. Essentially, we live together. So I think that was like
Yeah. I
the
mean, I
struggle I
don't.
did.
Yeah. I don't think it was difficult. As
I think because you were the difficult one.
maybe I was, or
Yeah.
was it as from what I can remember, I don't remember it being difficult. Living together. Besides us just like I said, breaking up every week and stuff.
Yeah.
But other than that, my experience, I don't think it was difficult.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe difficult's the wrong term. I don't want to. It was a change. It was a culture shock for me to like live with a
Because I felt
girl
like I
at
felt
the
like we were
time.
living together already,
Yeah.
so it wasn't really much of a change for me.
Yeah. I guess it was just a change because you were coming into my space at one point,
Hmm.
and then me going into your space then changed the dynamic of like things that I had to do. And then like obviously I had a brother, so I was like the youngest.
Hmm.
So things that he did, I now had to do in our house, like take the garbage out and
Mm.
uh, a lot of dishes and stuff like that, like for a whole household instead of just like we were eating takeout when we had our own, when
Yeah,
we lived at my our parents' house or whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, so that was an experience, but it was a good experience, I would say. And um other than that though, like just kind of touching on what we were talking about for the breakup, makeup situation. Around the time that we were gonna get engaged, I think we fast forward like maybe to 26, maybe 25, 26. Because we got
We got
engaged
engaged in 2015.
so yeah, fast forward maybe like 24. I remember you started dropping like these subtle hints. And you're like, you want to get engaged, and we had talked about it. You had like the promise ring. So like the next step was really
I think
to
you
get
bought me 2
engaged.
promise rings
I
before
did.
we got engaged.
Yeah. I had to make some new promises. Yeah. And I wanted to propose to you. I knew that you were the one. But for me personally, I remember we had this conversation, and I think you kind of maybe got your feelings hurt. Where I was saying like I wasn't sure if I want to do what we've been doing for the rest of my life. So I wanted to kind of make some changes. And then I think that's when we had the conversation like, hey, we can't just keep breaking up to make up. And I think you obviously agreed. I just think it was a hard pill to swallow because you were so in that mind state of like getting engaged at that point. And you had like all of your friends were like asking me too. And I think that's like for any women who's not engaged, like you can't have your friends ask, especially in front.
I didn't have them asking.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if you're the friend that asked, you can't do that because now it seems like I'm doing it because you asked. And the women that pressure you into it, it makes it seem like I'm only doing it because you pressured me into it. Even though like you were like saying,
I don't think no one's felt like that but you.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think anyone but me felt like that, but I think that's kind of the most important person to feel like that.
But I mean, as long as you weren't pressured into it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't 100%, but it was awkward because I was walking around with a ring for like 3 months waiting for it to happen because I had to, I had something planned out for you. And it was just weird to like get these text messages like you better do it soon, otherwise this and that.
When are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? Yeah, I mean, I think just because we were together for so long, and I felt like that was just the natural next step for us. We had a conversation that made it clear that we both wanted to take that next step. So yeah, and I think I don't know, my friends were just like excited and like, oh my, when's he gonna do it? When's he gonna do it?
Yeah.
And so.
And it was obviously like the natural next step. And when you think about the time frame, it's like, oh, you've been together for 10 years, almost 10 years at this time, but not thinking about
how old we were.
Right. So for 6 of those 10 years, we were not even 25 yet. You know what I mean?
When you say, 10 years, you're like, oh, wow, that's a long time. But when you think 16 to 26, like that's young. Yeah,
it's super young. So then like now you're like, you have to kind of think about the other side of it too, is like, okay, we got together young and obviously like things happen in the beginning. Can I deal with this? Then you're like, all right, can I deal with this person for the rest of my life? And then for me personally, and I know you feel the same, that like marriage is permanent. And I feel like going into that, I wanted to be 100% sure because I didn't want to propose to multiple people, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's completely fine.
We all hope that when we get into it, I feel like that's everyone's plan.
Right. Yeah. Obviously it's everyone's plan, but I just knew I didn't want to propose to multiple people. So I wanted to make sure that like this, if we were going to do it, this is what it was going to be. And weddings are expensive. So are engagement rings. And it's not like I'm going to ask for it back at that point. Right. But yeah, I think that was the big thing, is just kind of making sure it was the right decision. I think this is an epiphany I just had, was like making sure it was the right decision for me. For like once in our whole like relationship, I was thinking about only me in that that space. Was like, is this the right decision for me? And I don't know how that comes off, but I think that was the kind of my thought process in it.
Yeah.
And I was glad that I did it. We did it on our.
You're glad you did it. A little too late for that.
A little bit after our anniversary. I had something planned out for you, so I think that was cool. Nice little story to tell. Got a couple videos out of it.
Yeah.
And we got married on our 10-year wedding anniversary. We mentioned that in the last episode. but the engagement. So do you feel like that changed anything for you? Like going from being a girlfriend to a fiance?
Yeah, I think so. Um, when you think about it, like the big picture, I don't really feel like much has changed. Like
Right.
we've been living together since we were 19.
Mm,
I feel like we kind of been doing the same thing, like role wise. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I was playing wife and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. But I feel like, and some people, just say, oh, it's just a title. Like it doesn't mean anything. But I don't believe that. Like I feel like having that title of your fiance and now your wife, I feel like it just elevates it for me.
Right.
Like, so I
Ain't
do.
nobody's girlfriend no more. You
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Like, so
And it
I don't,
felt,
yeah. I mean, people can downplay it all they want, but I
yeah.
think there is a like a status quo to it.
Yeah.
So,
It made me feel like I was obviously grown, but it made me feel like grown. I was in my grown man era. Like I got a fiance now. I'm not like explaining to people that I meet, like, oh, yeah, this is my girlfriend. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but
yeah.
it just felt a little bit more like there were, like you said, there was a status to it. And yeah, I liked it. I liked the way that it sounded better than girlfriend. And
Mhm.
then kind of like now, obviously leading into marriage, I'm like, my wife, my wife, my wife. I feel like I kind of bring you up in just different conversations just to kind of talk about you a little bit, even though you may not think so. But yeah, I do feel like things started to feel a little bit more permanent for me
Mhm.
when we got engaged.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we were on, that streak of us breaking up and get back together and then we just was like, listen, if we want to be together, we're going to be together and we
Hmm.
just got serious and we grew up and
Absolutely.
yeah, then we got engaged and yeah.
And I don't know like about you, but for me, I feel like that's when I started to see like the real work. Like once we got
Mhm.
engaged, I started to see you like kind of morphing into the wife roles more so.
Yeah.
Where like obviously you did like the cooking and the
Yeah, it was
cleaning and
different
the,
though.
the stuff like that, the things that, we all do when we play house, but you kind of like started to kind of morph into that wife role. And like if if our kids, like I mentioned this before, is like if one of our kids was like shacked up with some guy, like I my advice to her is like to them is like don't live with any guy unless you
Unless
see it
what?
going to marriage. Don't be like doing wifely duties because then guys kind of get comfortable in that role. Like, all right, she's already cooking, she's already
Yeah.
cleaning. Why would I propose and change anything? Like, why would I spend the money? Why would I make this more permanent when she's already doing these things? And that's not how I seen it. But now that I have daughters, I'm like, don't do no. We get married first.
And they're
Wait
probably
till you're
not gonna listen to
35.
you.
Not one bit, not at all. But whatever, right? But yeah, that's when I started to see, like, I've always seen a future with you, obviously. But that's when I started to like see the future. Like,
Yeah.
all right. Cause remember before I was like, kids, I could take it or leave it.
Oh yeah.
But then we
You did
started
not
having
like
those.
kids when we first got together.
Don't make me seem like a
You
monster.
didn't. You
Yeah, I
did
was.
not like kids.
Yeah, yeah, I was not a fan.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, I
And I
wasn't
don't
a
even
fan
know if we had to have had the conversation that we wanted kids in the future. Like I don't think that we would have committed our lives together
without having that
without
conversation.
having that
Now we definitely did.
conversation.
For me, I'm like one of those people where like if I want you, then
Yeah.
I'm willing to do what, like conform to what you want. So like your deal breakers, like I was like, all right, I have some kids, like you know what I mean. And I'll learn to
I don't
like them,
remember
but
that conversation. Um or maybe your idea just changed because the first kid that you were around was our godson.
yeah,
E
yeah, that changed. But I didn't
Elijah,
get to
so
do
I feel
like
like he made you like, "Oh,
yeah
okay, kids are cool."
more
So
open
I
to it,
think
yeah,
by the time
because he was a great kid or was, but he's a great kid, like
yeah,
a great baby too, and like
yeah,
smart. So I was like, all right,
yeah,
this is cool. This is
yeah,
not the
and
other
y'all were
kids
like
that I've been seeing.
right, and you were always kinda like, "Oh, kids," like, you were weird around kids, but even you and Elijah, like, bonded, like, y'all were, like, buddies. So I feel like your mind changed, and I feel like by the time we got to the point where we were talking about kids and thinking about kids, you had already kind of changed your mindset
Warmed
on
up
it.
to the idea.
And
Yeah.
then my nephew,
Oh yeah, but
when we got together, he was 2.
right. So by the time like
So
I was in that adult mode to be like, oh yeah, kids ain't that bad, he was already like 6.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it wasn't like
yeah,
I didn't really get to enjoy his like young stage because by the time I got into that space, he was
Right.
already like too old.
So I guess I would say you didn't really like kids, you know, when we were like in high school.
Yeah, and it's not that I didn't like kids, I just wasn't around a lot of kids, and I wasn't.
You were just like uncomfortable around
Yeah,
kids.
like I didn't do like the baby talk. I still don't
Like
do
how
like
to
the baby
interact.
talk. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The interacting was like a awkward thing, but obviously I came around.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think like getting into that mode after like getting engaged, that's kind of what it did for me. I don't know about other guys, but that's what it did for me, was it kind of put me in a place where I'm like, you know what, I could see myself going half on a baby with you. As somebody, you know what I mean? I could see myself in daddy mode. And yeah, that was just it was just a weird time for us to like start the process of like planning a wedding and planning our future, because like we literally went from like breaking up all the time, serious conversation. All right, this is what we want to see our future. And like I kind of looked at you different. I think maybe you looked at me different.
Yeah.
And then it just got serious from there, and we started the wedding planning process, which is obviously another story, but I think that in the long run, obviously it worked out. And I think that like everything happened the way it was supposed to. I think all the uncertainty in our relationship kind of made us like realize like, all right, you got to take this serious. Because like for me, the thought of like losing you, or like even the small breakups, made it like real, like, all right, yeah, I want to be with her forever, essentially, or at least a very long time, right? You know, at least the rest of my life. So no, I do think that
got me.
I got you. Yeah, I got you, and 2 kids out of it. And you know, it's definitely an eye opener though, to kind of think about like where we started at and where we are now. And I definitely want to get into like our wedding journey and how we decided on like to start having kids, and just that timeline of like finding out we were pregnant, into moving into a new place, and like that whole journey. I definitely want to get into that into episode 3, but I think that we probably gave them enough at this point. So I want y'all to tune into episode 3. Thank you again for tuning in for the second episode of the Love on Top podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be back with another episode.
Yeah.